Good evening, all. My name is Cecil Maria Joy, and with me is Anson Jose.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
And we are the hosts for the day. And welcome to the fourth episode of Date with an Entrepreneur, organized by the IDC Cell of Christ College of Engineering, established in 2015 as a new entrant in the field of professional educational providers. Our college is managed by the CMI congregation of Devmada province is a part of Christ Charitable Trust Irinyalikуда. I extend my heartfelt welcome and gratitude to our Executive Director, for the John Palikira, our Joint Director, Father Joy Payapalli, and our Principal, Dr. Sajeev Johnson. I also welcome all the Kerala Startup Mission officials gathered here. I also extend my greetings and gratitude to our IEDC Nodal Officer, Rahul Manohar Sir. And I also welcome IEDC CEO of Christ College of Engineering, Mohammad Ashik.
The Innovation and the Entrepreneurship Development Cell, IEDC, actually aims to inculcate and strengthen the entrepreneur knowledge and culture within the members of IEDC. Now we are trying to provide them with knowledge and understanding such that every student can come up with a better project and an idea, which is much more profitable and ideal in all aspects. Now, Date with an Entrepreneur brought to you by IEDC. This has now been happening this platform twice a month, where each time you get to know an entrepreneur and also get aware about this roller coaster ride of success and failure. Now, in the present scenario of hacking and cybercrime, etc., security becomes an aspect of security and privacy become aspect of utmost importance. Fear not, today along with us, we have Mr. Nandakishore Harikumar, who is the CEO of the cyber security startup, Technisant. We welcome you, sir, wholeheartedly to this occasion. Now, he's an engineer turned entrepreneur, and also even his startup is backed up by IIT, Mandi, the Data Security Council, GAN, etc. Now, all of us are eager to hear for his voice. So let me begin with, sir. During your time of engineering, you were part of a lot of startups, right? You were part of Monolith, the Octopus, Innovative Solutions, and all. And that has led you to reach greater heights. Like now you have been the CEO of Technisant, which is such a great height. So, sir, what is the actual motivation that led to, or what did actually inspire you to be an entrepreneur?
First of all, thank you, Cecil and Anson. It's great to meet you guys here.
Yes,
maybe I was also a student like you when I was in my in engineering days. But at that time, like let's say, we never had a vision because we never had something called a startup mission, or we never had accelerator programs or nothing related to startups. But at that point of time, it was very popular in US. Startup culture was gradually coming in. So this was something that really motivated. So I read a book, which quotes Steve Jobs again, where he started his first entrepreneurship from his college days. So that was one. Second was Mark Zuckerberg, who started Facebook from his college. So this is something that was in me. So during my school days also, I was I used to build websites. And I had some small clients who will pay me like, let's say, 500 rupees or 600 rupees, and I used to sell that. At that time, if I don't remember the exact name of that tool, there was a tool by Microsoft. Microsoft had I think it was Front Page or something like that, where we could design a website and publish online. So this is what I used to do at that point of time. So that was one thing that really motivated me. So then I was just thinking, let's say, how can I become a businessman? Because that's something that is never taught to us, becoming a businessman. But my father was a businessman. That would be one reason would have motivated me, because I had seen its freedom of accessibility, freedom of time. I mean, being a businessman. So that was one thing. But from another point, like everyone, I thought this was the most easiest way to make money. So everyone believed that businessmen make the maximum money out of it. So that was one reason. So Monolith was actually a friend startup. It's a very successful, digital marketing company. They have been doing a lot of branding for global brands now. So I was a part of it at the the initial stage, because I was a part of that organization where we were able to raise the first first client for them. So that was the big journey I had to do that. And that point of a time that social media was not popular, or digital media marketing was not popular in 2009, 2010. We had to walk through all shops in Cochin. Take the small scooter and travel all through Cochin, sell digital media marketing for 8,000 rupees, 5,000 rupees. So this was my first assignment. And I used to make somewhere around, 20% of what he generates. So this was my first business. Then I moved on to Octopus. Octopus was again my startup. Like, let's say I ventured into a bit of digital media marketing much before doing a lot of cybersecurity activities. So these were the two initiatives. Then actually moved into a cybersecurity company. I was associated with another cybersecurity firm, a co-founded a firm called SecLabs and Systems, based out of Noida, where we were a vendor to, of course, the government of India. So that was my cybersecurity's beginning. But I was very much, I just tell this as a joke. Like, let's say I used to get into the connected, network systems in my college. Without even that, I used to get into the systems that were working in the staff room. So I was so much fascinated about these kind of activities. I don't know why. But now when I think back, it's a crime. We should not be doing that, because I'm on the other side now. So this was the beginning.
Well, sir, it's so great to hear that, because you wanted to be an entrepreneur right from your school days. And it's so happy to see that you are now a successful entrepreneur. So right from your school days, you were interested in public speaking skills, right? Like debates, speeches, etc. So you had many other career options, like being an advocate or civil servant, but you chose to be an entrepreneur. So how did the public speaking skills help you as an entrepreneur?
Actually, I don't know from where you got this information, but that is right. I was so fascinated about debating. I used to win debate competitions in my school. So one thing, like, let's say, again, I want to connect it to entrepreneurship. I think when I was in 6th standard, I studied in a school called Bishop Moore Vidyapeeth in Mavelikira in Alapi district. So Dr. Alphonse Kannanthanam, he was not a politician at that time. He was a civil servant. So he visited my school and he asked everyone, like, what do you want to become in life? So he asked who want to become doctors. So many raised their hands. He asked who all want to become engineers. Then many raised their hands. And finally, he asked, how many of you want to start your own business? Me and just maybe 2 or 3 people would have raised our hands. Maybe next day itself, the class teacher who was in charge of my classroom, she called me to the staff room and started advising me. See, this is ICSE syllabus school. Like, let's say, I think you should have more focus. Like, you need to think yourself, like, you have good speaking skills. Why don't you choose a civil service career? Or why don't you become a doctor? Or like, why don't you become an engineer? So this was the mindset at that point of time. Speaking skill is much needed for a businessman. It's the most biggest skill you need to have, because you need to convince a client, you need to convince your investor, you need to convince your staff, you need to make them trust. I have people who have resigned from big companies and joined me. How did they join? So that's my speaking skill. So I'm selling my dreams. So for selling dreams, you need to really have your good speaking skills.
So, sir, from your words, it is definitely evident that you did stand unique from everyone else, right? You did stand apart, and I think that did help you a lot in achieving a great career like yours. So, I have a common question that everyone would have, because nowadays we youngsters, when you were able to start up with no much of a problem and all, you face those challenges and all. What I would like to know is that what kind of methodology should a group of youngsters adapt to so that they can begin a startup or be an entrepreneur?
So, Anson, there is no rule by the book that this is the only way that you could do a startup, but you need sheer passion, because you need to do one thing. Money won't be the first thing that comes to you when you do a startup, because most of them jump into startup thinking that they will get huge money. Yeah. They will get huge funding. So one mistake, maybe if I recollect one of the mistake, what I always used to make, rather than building a good company, or rather than building a good product, or rather than building a good organization or a brand, our first focus was to, to be more specific, to get money from investors.
Okay.
So this won't work. So you need to create value. That's what is called value creation. Everyone will ask, what is the value creation you are doing to the market? You need to know what is the problem the world is facing, because you may feel that your idea is most marvelous. Yes, you need to have that kick, but you should be able to really go deeper into that, introspect into that, and also correct those kind of suggestions the world is giving you. Because usually there are two ways of doing business. Either you should make a business that is highly much needed in the market. Like, let's say there is a huge demand, there should be a huge demand.
Okay.
But now we are seeing a new trend. Like, let's say, look into Byju's app. There was no market demand at that point of time. Now they are at hackathon.
Yeah.
So that's what. Like, let's say this is there is no single lane approach. I cannot advise which says that there you have to go this path. But one thing what helped me, there is something called a lean startup methodology. I'm sure most of you may know it. It's something called a lean startup. It's created by someone called Eric Rice. So just read his book. Eric Rice has written a book called Lean Startup. So lean startup is one way to start with something you can measure and build over it. So that is one of the best approach which I have come across, and most of its methodologies are highly proven. Practically successful. So I would always tell entrepreneurs to really focus on such kind of a methodology.
Sir, can you please check your video quality? I mean, we can't see clearly.
Okay, just a second.
Okay.
Is it clear now?
Yeah, much better.
Okay.
So now it was your consistent effort that led you to something called Techniscent. So can you please tell more about the journey of Techniscent?
Yeah, because before starting with Techniscent, I used to really handle with government clients in my other startup called SecLabs and Systems. I was a part of it. So most of our initiatives, marketing initiatives, selling initiatives was with governments, like even foreign governments. So I understood that there is a huge demand of a corporate product too. So we have that experience to really go into an enterprise product that would really capture the market. So when Techniscent started, so the full concept of cybersecurity was not there. The first initiative was to counter misinformation related to brands. So we know that misinformation has been highly spreading these days. Fake news is capturing the mainstream news these days. So we really thought of hunting down those kind of activities. But again, that's a huge task. Like, let's say no one has been successful using, artificial intelligence in countering fake news. So that was one of the major hiccups. So we worked a bit, but we understood that the market needs something different. We need to do a pivoting. That's how we came up with such a product, because we have been doing cybersecurity consulting since a long time. So we understood that it's high time that organizations which we work with need to have some kind of a solution that is driven by technology, not just human interventions. It need to have something related to machine learning or artificial intelligence, and it's very hard to handle. Or analyze. It's so huge. It comes in TBs. It comes in GBs. So it's very hard for a human being to dedicate his time for such kind of an activity. So that was one reason why we thought about making a product. So our initial plan was to really focus on service vertical. Even still, our service vertical is giving more money than whatever we are generating from our product. So product is still it's still in the beta stage. So we do a lot of cybersecurity services. So that's from where we got this thought process.
Okay, sir. As you were referring to I think, as you had said before, I think the artificial intelligence and machine learning and all are going to grow up a lot in the near future. So, sir, I have a doubt that how would the AI, the artificial intelligence, would be contributing towards the field of cybersecurity? Because I think a lot of engineers can find enough amount of opportunities in that field. So, what can you comment about that?
So, artificial AI is one term, because maybe I have studied this in my college. So AI was one of the most I mean, I never knew where the application would really come up because at that time AI was not so popular. So, but the funny fact is that it's not exactly AI; it's the predictive intelligence that is being widely used for cybersecurity. So, foresee the future, taking a lot of patterns and a lot of threats what we have already faced. So that's one aspect of it. Like, let's say we have to collect a lot of threat, analyze that, identify the threat patterns, then do, I mean, a bit of predictive intelligence and give it to the client. So they will have a clear idea where they have to make corrections. So that is one area where AI or machine learning or predictive intelligence is really making its way for cybersecurity, because cybersecurity startups with AI have been heavily funded. It's becoming buzz of the world because it's a rarity. First of all, you may only find like 200 startups in India, cybersecurity startups. It's a niche industry, so AI has a lot of practical applications. And this is one aspect of cybersecurity where we are, encountering. But there are a lot of cybersecurity aspects, like, let's say, perimeter security. That's also some kind of a cybersecurity. So there are applications that will really detect a violent nature of a human being. For example, there are products which you could deploy in your perimeter, and the camera will let you know whether the nature of a man entering into your premises has some kind of a violent nature. So based on movements, motion intelligence, so many applications are there.
Okay.
Yes, I think artificial intelligence is really important today, and many of our students are doing internships and seminars and watching seminars about it. So what do you think is the importance of internships and many other competitions like hackathons in today's time? So how does this really help for the future and for entrepreneurship? How does this competitions help?
See, this is the most, most impressive trend that's happening these days, because when we were stepping into an entrepreneurship, there were no one who could really put forward us to even invest there. But now, seeing the hackathon, seeing the presentation, people are coming in. I have been seeing a lot of hackathons happening. Last week, the Kerala police had a, it just got over. They have HackKP. It's a hackathon that was happening for some cybersecurity products, which Kerala government really wants to. So that's something that is very impressive. You find an idea, you get funded by the government itself. That's really massive, right? Maybe if you go, if you look back 7 years or 8 years, or look back into the 70s or 80s when the Infosys started, they would have struggled for next 10 years to make their first customer. Infosys has a big story where Narayana Murthy had to sell his wife's gold to make the. They were begging towards all of their vendors, giving them small certificate to the guy who sold the printer, the guy who sold their first computer. So, now the kids never need anything, right? So the funds are there. Massive acceleration program. So this Data Security Council of India, where we are also part of, where we are incubated. So they start funding, or let's say they incubate organizations in their, let's say, in their idea stage. If you have a good cybersecurity thought, just pitch into them. If your thought is really good, they will help a lot. Secondly, they have a panel of and a series of mentors. Like, let's say, you can see the CISO of Infosys, Mr. Vishal Salvi, being a director in DSCI. So there are so many people. So we are a part of another accelerator program called India Accelerator Program. So the CISOs we are engaging with are like the CISO of GMR or let's say CISO of Birlasoft. So there are a lot of opportunities that are coming in. That's actually nice. Second thing with the intern, it's good. Like, let's say, we have been taking interns. We have been taking interns who are doing their, their college, degrees. We give them money. Like, let's say, our policy is that we should not do free internship. We should do paid internship. Even if there is people say that, so we are just looking for an opportunity. So if you are so passionate about cybersecurity, if you are so passionate about innovating something, we pay them. So we want to ensure that these guys are fed well. So that is one of the biggest motto what we keep with us. So that's going very well. We have been coming across passionate youngsters. So last week we just floated another internship opportunity, and I got around 200 or 300 resumes. So that's very impressive.
Also, that's so great to hear, because when you are providing opportunities, there are a lot of students who are going to be benefited out of it. So Now, so as you had mentioned before, you said that the students have different kinds of aids and helps that they can get for the aspect of funding with related to startups and all. So my doubt here is that what are the procedures or what are the steps someone needs to approach so that the funding or the financial aspects are being covered up by the KSUM or any other relative aspects, something of that sort?
See, there are different aspects for this. One is like, let's say there is a huge funding happening. So it's always sector wise. For example, the hardware industry is getting a lot of funding. So you can switch for accelerator programs, which invest like 25 to 30 lakh per team. They call it as a team. So for, for raising an idea to a minimum viable product. So that is the area where most of them need funding. Like, let's say you have an idea. And how will you convert it into a product? How do you be so sure that this would become like a product? So that's where a lot of youngsters seek funding. In our case, we had to work a lot. We never seek the funding. So the first funding we ourselves funded. Like, let's say we were doing service industry. The whatever money we generated from our clients, we were investing into our product. So this was the kind of funding. There is no rule or any law by the book which will really say that this is the way a funding will come. So there are many startups, they will get funding at their ideation stage. There are thousands of startups, they will not even get a funding at their ideation stage. So if your idea is so clear, if your USPs are clear clarity about what you're doing, of course there are funding. So one kind of a funding, if you have a hardware industry, there are so many loan programs where you will get even 1 year moratorium. On the other side, there are organizations like KSUM who would just do their basic funding, accelerate your, like, incubate you, give their space, give you mentor connects. So through mentor connects, you can meet people working in big organizations like Infosys or all these kind of organizations. So where they themselves, the mentors will come as an investor in your company. So the first funding happens. So there are another category got like VC funding. So if you need to get a VC funding, you need to grow. Like, let's say you need to at least show that you are at least a $1 million company for a VC to come and invest. But it's always good to have these kind of small organizations. KSUM has also got different schemes. But with specific with ladies, so there are something, like if a lady entrepreneur is there, so there are some other aspects, like let's say SB has some plan. I have heard about this. So SB, if there is a women entrepreneur in the company, SB funds on a, like a debt funding, they do it for the organization. But still, you need to have clear picture. You need to have all the documents ready. You need to show that you are capable of doing all these things. So that's very much important.
Yes, the young entrepreneurs can make an easy start because of this funding, because of the easy funding they receive. And you might have faced some failures in your life. And in one of your interview, you mentioned that if you face some failures, you just write it on boards and you evaluate how to avoid these failures, how to avoid these mistakes in the next step. So there are some students who feel depressed after each failures. So what is your advice to them?
Most of the entrepreneurs, once they finish their journey, once they are successful, they never highlights their failure. But maybe if you remember when Sundar Pichai became the CEO of Google, he made a talk. He just told everyone, you just wear the badge of failure because it's something that you need to really highlight. Because he told he has been failing multiple times. So similarly, that has created a big shift in the industry. Everyone started speaking out about their failure. So if you ask me, I failed multiple times. Maybe last month also I would have failed. So failure come to everyone. It's dependent. Like, let's say some people really fail in the company. Some people fail with their proposals. Some people fail attracting investors. Some people fail attracting clients. Some people fail attracting a family. Some people fail attracting their present boss. So everyone has to face some kind of a failure. So what I do, I used to write these failures. I used to speak out this failure so that my frustration gets over. But again and again, face failures. So you may face 100 failures and you may only face one success. But we have to only remember about that success. We have to really forget all the failures with that one success. So this is how the world happens. Every entrepreneur, like let's say you just look into big companies which are funded. the person who started Uber, so he failed 49 times in his life. This is what I have read in a book. And this 50th startup was one of the most successful startup. This TED Talk. So similarly, failure is part of your longest journey, but just keep those things as your walking step. Like just keep each failure as your step. Walk over those failures. Just do that. And with youngsters, so I mean, maybe after 3 years or 5 years, you would feel that I mean, like the teachers who taught you, I mean, the teachers who scolded you when you lose for an exam. It's all of, I mean, it won't have much nothing to do in a bigger space because people won't bother about that. So it's about being how smart you are. The world is moving towards a street smart world. You need to be street smart to achieve many things. Even if you go to an investor, it's shown that how can you impress an investor within 5 minutes to get your first investment. So this world is totally changing. There's a total paradigm shift happening now. So it don't bother. You may fail more times, but don't bother. You will be successful at some point of your time. So this is what I always believe.
Okay, sir. So that was so motivating because, as Cecil had mentioned before, the motivation that student needs at this juncture, especially during the time of COVID pandemic, I think, because people are sitting in their home and they are procrastinating a lot in many aspects. But in one of your interviews, you were mentioning that even though the COVID pandemic had affected, it did affect you in a positive way. And what do you have to comment about this?
So all these happenings, like let's say, like you mentioned, the Data Security Council, the Global Accelerator, the IIT of Mandi, all these selections happened after the COVID time. Okay. So I just evaluate myself. I became so productive these days because I have nothing other to do. I don't have a movie to watch. I don't have. I mean, I cannot go out with my friends. So I became so productive. I started working like let's say around the clock. So this was one thing. But see, every situation can be changed. If you look into India's COVID situation, we created so many industries. Like let's say, Anand Mahindra was the first one to make his factory into his automotive factory into a ventilator factory. He started producing ventilators. Many of those companies, cloth manufacturing companies, textile production companies in Tirupur, that's one of the biggest textile industry area. So they started making masks. So India is the second biggest producer for these kind of PPE kits now. We were not even in the picture. We were never a producer. We used to only import from China. So we stepped up. We stepped up into that situation. We know how to, because Indians are so agile. So they are so flexible. So they are so adaptive because we are a very young country. Our youth capital is so high. So we just start innovating, and like let's say if you start just innovating, maybe we could cross US in next 25 years. We have such big talents because most of our talents, like let's say Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai, Ajay Banga of Citibank, all these people are Indians. Pranav Mistry, who was with Samsung, is their innovation head. They are all Indians. So it's so simple, right? So Indians have that capability. So that's one thing. So pandemic has not caused us much because we never lost a client, we never lost a revenue. Of course, if you want to count in numbers, maybe a few prospectives that would have converted into clients didn't happen just because the prospectives revenue were really hurt. So their revenue started going down. So that was one reason, but we never wanted to take it so negative. We wanted to make it so positive. So we started hunting for more clients, started working on new meetings, made everyone work from home much before Indian lockdown was declared. So we were all abroad. We were all in different places. Few of my staffs were in, or like my co-founders were in Indonesia. And also we asked everyone to, like, let's say, let's start working from home from March 5th. And so results started coming in. So we were much focused at this COVID time. So it can happen.
Yes, so this will really help students who feel trapped during this period. Now, your company is associated with Kochi Police, right? So during this time, we live in a world of internet and we are surrounded by cyber attacks. So how do your company helps Kochi Police to reduce the cyber crimes?
So Kerala Police themselves have an initiative called Cyberdome. Most of you will be aware about that. It's actually a public plus private partnership. So their main office is in, Trivandrum. The headquarters is actually Trivandrum. So recently only it's kickstarted in Cochin. So we are a part of Kochi Cyberdome. So our activity is very much limited. We have to just give some kind of intelligence or some kind of threats if we come across. So we also keep them alerted. And when it comes to COVID scenario, of course, people all started working from home. The working from home culture has really increased the methods of cybersecurity attacks. A lot of cyber attacks are happening. There is a huge increase in cyber attacks. The attack vectors really changed. From an organization's individuals are being targeted, phishing scams, scams. So many things are happening. See, most of us know that. We use basic passwords, like let's say most of us use happy 1234 or 1234 QAT. So this is this is known to all these hackers, attackers. So they will use of that situation. That's very normal. And it was a sudden change. We were not fully prepared. No organizations were fully prepared. So one fine morning, it's declared that the entire globe is going to be in a lockdown method. So they won't be prepared. So of course, organizations biggies like TCS or Infosys, they have their own methodologies to protect. But when you come to a medium, like let's say a small scale or a medium industry, they would not even be prepared to launch digitally. Most of the organizations had to launch digitally in an unprepared manner. Of course, cyber attacks will come.
Okay. Hello, sir.
Yes.
Okay, sir. So as you were mentioning, you were working with Kochi Police and all. So, sir, as we students, we youngsters, we are nowadays really busy within the social media platforms, right? And the amount of crime occurring in that perspective is a lot more than really imaginable, right? We are using Instagram, Facebook, and everything. So what can you say about the security with regard to those social media platforms, and how can someone get rid of those kinds of cyber crimes with regard to those platforms?
So youngsters, you need to be very clear that whatever site you go, wherever you go, you are leaving a footprint. So we call it a digital footprint.
Yeah, digital. Yeah.
So our police departments are so equipped. Especially Kerala Police and their cyber security, cyber cell is so equipped with the most modern technology. They have one of the best cybersecurity professionals in their team, cyber cops. So they can track you. You need to be very careful that you visiting a website, ensure that they are legitimate website. I know there has been a practice among youngsters to buy products from Telegram groups, get into carding scams. So. And also, there are multiple scams that revolve around internet, which shows us or which mentions that it's easy money. So we have to be very careful that we do not fall into that scam. Secondly, don't download everything what you see in internet. Like any app, look for its legitimacy. It can be a malware which can really affect your, like a phone and take all this kind of data. So similarly, don't click on all this emails what you see. If it's a suspicious email marked by Gmail, don't download things being forwarded by unknown people, and verify. Like let's say verify whether it's being sent. Like let's say I can really scam someone in my name, or like let's say I can just take the name of Hanson and scam someone in Trice College. So an attacker always, try to understand those perspectives. They would really love to know what exactly this person is knowing, who are his friend circle. So this regularly happens. So based on that, really they will try to put forward in your trap. So be so sure that you don't fall into those kind of traps. Be safe, be secure. Don't go into those sites or portals which are restricted by the law. So there is an IT Act which can take you into jail. You may feel that you're anonymous, but you are not so anonymous. There is a clear footprint. Even with the header of an email, someone can be tracked or traced. So our police departments have good systems where they could get data from the internet service providers or all these things. So be safe. Don't get into that kind of a trap. If you get into that kind of a trap, your life is gone. 5 years, 6 years, whatever cases they are charging, you're totally doomed. You have a bright future, so better don't go into that.
Yes, and we also noted that since your company became associated, now since the cyber cell is actually strong, now the victims of abuse, cyber abuse and cyber attacks they never used to complain to the police. They refuse the help from police. But now, since the online platform is much stronger, they can complain online. So this will really help many of the victims. Right? And has your company faced any such problems regarding the abuse or harassment?
Yes, maybe I think 4 years before I did a research on how women are abused in online platform. I mean, I gave you interviews to selected medias. So we did a survey. We conducted survey among 100 people, 100 women, working women. Most of them faced abuse, but most of them were not ready to come to a police station and report the crime because they still believe that it's very hard for them to face a police station. But I have to really tell them that it's so cyber friendly. You just, I mean, it's so friendly. Police stations are becoming so high tech. If you visit our police station, the Info Park police station, I stay nearby the Info Park in Cochin. So it's a most modern center where you would find, highly, technically aware cops who could really understand your problem and register a case. And every district headquarters has a cyber cell where the district in charge, the SPs are in charge of the cyber cell, and they can directly take complaints from you. So that's there. So I don't know why it's being limited, but I would request or I would recommend anyone who faces such kind of a challenge to come forward and put forward a complaint so that the culprits will come to the limelight. Second thing. Many people come to us now. They face abuse in Instagram. They face abuse of fake profiles, harassments. Most of them are women. Unfortunately, you need to understand one thing. See, like if you are extremely harassed, like let's say you see a lot of harassment coming to you, and if it's affecting your life, you need to really go to cops. That's the first step you have to do. Now we have cyber courts. Where judges are aware about the cybersecurity protocols. We have highly trained judiciary. They know the all aspects of cybersecurity, and that's the way a state can grow. Because we cannot expect police machinery to be fully equipped like FBI on one fine morning where they will catch everything. They need to ask statements, and there are women officers who could really aid. Ask for help, and like you can really request these women officers to help you. So that's actually there.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so that definitely means that nowadays, due to this different kinds of online startups like yours, I think it would be a kind of a social commitment too, because people can come up front so that they are not being harassed and all. And that's a good work, sir. I really appreciate you for doing so. And also, I would like to ask one question is that you actually are trying to understand the needs of the society by doing it. Because by starting a startup of this sort, you are actually trying to control the digital world without any cause of problem. So how do we understand the need of an economy right at this present scenario?
One thing, there is something called, learning is one of the major thing. You need to follow some international journals which you could have clear idea about the markets. Let's say there is a medium called Gartner. So Gartner shows the future trend. So some data you can collect that. And most of the solutions, like let's say most of the solutions that has come across that has created massive disruptions, like Swiggy, Zomato, Uber, Ola, they were solving common man's problem. So we are not into solving common man's problem. We are into enterprise tech. You need to understand or differentiate these kind of industries. So we are purely into that kind of a tech, and it has its own limitation. It will take a bit of time to get into market, get proper traction. But all these so-called successful startups like Byju's or Vedantu or these edutech startups they have been seeing this market where people will be fully depending on an internet economy or like let's say an internet approach towards the education. And luckily or unluckily, it happened. Due to COVID or non-COVID situation, this happened, and this is going to be a culture. Now, our kids won't be sent for tuition classes. The tuition classes will come into your digital space. So it's purely based on your awareness about the market. Of course, that is something that's needed. Two big mistakes India used to do till now. Like it was, so we used to closely watch budget every year. Indians used to closely watch budget, and they used to see which product had maximum subsidy. And based on the subsidy, people used to do diversification. So this was the biggest mistake India used to do for a long time. But in last 10 years, the culture has been changing. People started walking into innovations. We used to, let's say, a product that used to come in America 10 years before, gets launched in India after 10 years. So that's not the way of put forwarding a business. You need to clearly know the market. You need to put a bit of innovation. You need to really know what the market really wants. So knowing that, you need to read. You need to understand people's problem. For example, people say that it's very hard to get loan. But now, is it very hard to get loan? No, there are a lot of startups. Within few minutes, few seconds, you could get even a lot of 1 crore rupees.
Yeah.
There are apps. There are many fintech apps. You need to download one of them. You need to give your PAN card number. You need to give your Aadhaar card number. They will do all the online verifications. There are systems built by RBI to verify your data, your existing credit score. You will do that. For students who are unable to pay monthly, tuition fees, there is a, I forgot the startup's name. If you Google, you will get it. There is a startup which pays for that. So similarly, every problem you face, you find a solution and you can make a product. So these are all common problems what we face in our daily life. We may have so many problems where we require a lot of innovation. So one app which I recently saw, it's called as R3. It's to collect our garbage, and they have presence in Trivandrum and now in Cochin and Calicut, I assume. This is a major problem. Like I used to wonder, where will I throw my electronic waste? And they give somewhere around 40 rupees per kilo for electronic waste or something like that. I really don't remember now. But there are solutions coming up each and every problem we face. So we never believed. Okay, 6 years did we believe that we could see a film, which is released on theater the next day? Now, instead of getting released in theaters, our films are being released on OTT platforms. So technology is really changing people's habits. So there is something known as habit-creating products. I would suggest you all to read a book called Hooked. There's a book called Hooked, Hooked, Hooked. So read that book. It let you know how habit-forming products are made. So Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger, Zoom, all these are habit-forming products. Google. Just read those books.
Yes, sir. Every problem has its own solution. And if we know the marketplace, we can easily build a startup. And now, as an entrepreneur, you may face many stress and pressure in your life. And you're an active participant in Art of Living, right? So that might be keeping you energized. So how else do you keep yourself stress-free and relaxed?
Yeah, one thing is I do breathing exercise regularly. So that has really helped me to overcome my stress. So Art of Living has a breathing exercise called Sudarshan Kriya, which is also called the Sky Technique, which is being researched in Harvard and Yale University. So that has really helped me. I've been doing it since last 7 or 8 years. So whenever I get a lot of stress, I automatically, do it for continuously. So maybe at least for 10 to 30, 20 days, I never miss doing that. So that really helps me to overcome that. And also, of course, see, there is two ways of getting energies always. So one is motivation. Motivation really requires outsiders. Like someone should motivate us. Either your friends should motivate us, your family should motivate us. Otherwise, something should motivate us. Like, can be money, it can be food, it can be a movie, it can be a celebrity. But I always believe in inspiration. So inspiration comes from inside. So I tell everyone, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. So he's one of the most inspiring person for me. What would be the motivation for him coming from Rameshwaram? being born to in a very normal family. What would have been his motivation to build the best systems in DRDO? What would have been his motivation in 2012 to launch a tablet PC after becoming the president of India? He worked with Mr. Raju, who was his former colleague, to launch a PC which can be used in a tablet PC which can be used in medical sector or healthcare sector. So what would have been his motivation? It's inspiration. He was inspired. He wanted to do something for the country. So this inspiration, the moment it strikes you, you cannot stop. You keep on working. So that is one aspect. Like, let's say, I also get demotivated. I also feel so negative sometimes. That moment, thought strikes in me. So if I just stop here, my entire team will stop working. So I need to step up. I need to be on that. I need to at least pretend that nothing has happened to us. Like, let's say, we lost a big investment opportunity last year in August. It was from the Singapore Singtel Networks and the University of Singapore. So NUS, National University of Singapore. So we were in the last round. The only reason that investment didn't work out, that I had a power failure in my house and power I kept on going off. They tried to call me 3 times. 3 times the call was rescheduled that day, and last time they had to say bye to me. So what would they think about me? So that's another thing. But I was demotivated for maybe 1 hour. But after that, I myself thought, like, if I get demotivated, my entire team will stop doing this. And it's not just one rejection will really stop my passion for building a good organization or a big brand. I need to keep on working. So this thought comes to me every time. So so funny, like, you would have heard about this VC firm called Secure. Secure is one of the biggest VC firm which has invested in Flipkart and all these things. Yeah. So Rajan Anandan, who is the present MD, he was with Google earlier. So Rajan Anandan was sharing in one of his talks. So why I want startups to get invested is just because it's not about making the product, but I want the startup owners to sleep. We cannot sleep. We are so energized. So he was mentioning that we want startup founders to really take care of their health, because they give everything. They work at night. They work at 3 o'clock at night, 4 o'clock at night. They won't sleep for a day or two. They still work on their product. So that's one reason why they want to invest in organizations, because if the product is good, that's where you need to put your money. So gradually, once you're so inspired by your ideas, you keep on working. Nothing can pull you back.
Okay, sir. So that definitely itself stands out, because you itself being an entrepreneur, apart from that, you're becoming also a good leader also, where you stay motivating your workforce, etc. And that's so great to hear, sir. That's so great. Now, I would like to understand, I would like to know more about what do you have to comment about the success and happiness? How do you see these two?
Success is never connected to happiness. Happiness is something that you always need. It should not be connected to your success, because success will come and go. Like many people will feel. I met with a famous entrepreneur. I don't know to name him. So he runs a billion dollar business. So he was personally sharing this thought. He was just saying, like, I may lose everything. I may lose my entire money, but I don't be worried, because I will just go back. I will just sit somewhere in the road. I will just polish the shoes of someone other and come back into my business. So that's the way many of the entrepreneurs think. So it's something, happiness should give you success. So I've seen many people who are so big successful are not happy in their life. So that's that, because happiness is something, like, world is going to be in happiness index. The next generation or next set of products, productivity is purely based on happiness. Now, countries, for example, UAE or Norway, you got a happiness ministry. Can you imagine? They are monitoring the happiness index of a nation on day-to-day basis. What will keep you happy? And organizations, they have chief happiness officers these days. So this is something that's highly related to your productivity. If you're not happy, if you're not contented with what you're doing, like, let's say you're going to lose it, I would say you should find happiness within yourself. it lies. So don't wait for success to come and just hug you, because we have seen a lot of case studies, like let's say people who really lost in their life, still being happy, coming back to with full swing, launching business and becoming successful. But for that coming back, you need to be happy. So that's the main thing. So I don't relate. Personally, it's a personal opinion. Everyone would have their own opinion. For some people, success would be happiness, but I never think like that. I want people to be happy. Success will really follow them.
Okay, so that was really great to hear. That was really inspiring. We are concluding our session. And sir, we're so happy to see you here because as a child, okay, when you mentioned the story how Alphonse Kandamdanan came to your school, and as a student itself, you had a clear ambition that you want to be an entrepreneur. And today you are a successful entrepreneur, and it's truly inspiring. We have many aspiring entrepreneurs with us today. They will be really inspired with your story. So now we are going to take questions from the audience.
Okay.
Think about the cybersecurity, especially when the line between white hat and black hat seems blurred. Yes, that's something I wanted to discuss. So, cybersecurity in India is totally changing. There is a new cybersecurity policy that is going to come in. The entire law is going to be redrafted. Earlier, there was only one section I really forgot. It was 66B, which, if I'm not wrong, which was which is not in place anymore to handle the defamations. But now the new policy is still being drafted. So these agencies like DSCA, where we are a part of Data Security Council of India, they are an apex body of cybersecurity companies, resources, and professionals. So a new policy that was announced recently by the Prime Minister on the Independence Day, that India is going to bring up a new cybersecurity policy, and India is going to really bring something that's going to be very much effective, because India, as of in India, we don't have a proper law to charge a data breach. If a company comes across a data breach, there is no legal case that can be properly taken. It won't properly stand in a court. So with all these things, you can a new cybersecurity policy is going to come in place. So that will clear all these questions between the white hat or black hat. All these clarifications will come in that. The next question is that how do you make sure that a company of your testing against for reporting purpose, they do not turn around and sue for offensive measures, especially when Rakan is quite noticeable. So yes, that's highly possible. So but we have a set of policies, we have a set of norms and rules, and we only go rule by the book. That is one of the biggest issue with any cybersecurity company. Like let's say we can only go by the rule of a book, but on the other side, the hacker or a criminal can really go into any extremes and do some kind of mischievous. But there are issues. Of course, that's a limitation that many of the cybersecurity companies have. And more than that, we are not hacking into anyone's personal system. We are just identifying vulnerabilities and digital risks. So there ends the line. We never take anyone's data and sell it, or we never hack into someone's personal information and put it on a public place and sell it. So it's not so big issue for us till now, but it's still a limitation. Can you explain this to a successful entrepreneur? I think, can I take that more question, right? One more question.
Yeah, so we have one more student, Vinay Haridas. Please turn on your microphone so that you can ask your question. Is Vinay here? Is Vinayak over here? Okay.
So how can we connect ethical hacking and cybersecurity? So ethical hacking is one branch of cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a big branch. So certified ethical hacking, there is a course like that. So that's the basis what most of us do. So it's a branch of cybersecurity. Cybersecurity has so many big branches, from application security, mobile security, IoT security, API security, endpoint security. There are a lot of things, and risk monitoring, threat intelligence, red teaming, blue teaming, gray teaming. So it's a lot. It would take at least another 2 hours to explain about cybersecurity as a field. Yeah, I think.
So also one more question is there asked by BHP Products that, sir, can you explain the steps in becoming a successful entrepreneur? So, sir, please.
Yeah, so there are no, there are no single path points for that. You need to do small goal setting. So goal setting is very important. You start achieving the small things. Don't look for the big things which you are not able to do that. Set your vision for the biggest thing, but start achieving your small goals, which gives you a lot of satisfaction and contentment. So this is much needed. So if you're looking only for the bigger thing to happen, I'm sure that you will take another 20 years to reach them. So the basic maturity an entrepreneur should need, it at least take 10 years for you to come into that picture. So it's not an organization which is highly funded with huge capital. It's not necessary that they should sustain for next 10 years. We are living in a world that 99% of the startups are shutting down. So even after they are getting first round or second round of funding, it's something that you need to really work on. Just make small goals, achieve that. One more question has come.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So.
Things and planning complexing and whether it's difficult for managing small things about things along with big things. Whether it's difficult for managing small things along with big things. Yes, decision making is the most biggest process because we need to be bad with few people when you have to make decision. We may lose a lot of relationships when you make bold decisions. So one thing I have always heard about Steve Jobs, he used to be very much perfectionist. He is never he used to be a cutthroat professional. Many people ask me how can he be a role model? But when it comes to product and solutions, no one has designed the world's best products. Steve has made the best products in the world. I mean, Apple is one of the best products by its design. May not be by the technology, but by its design, it's one of the best products. So that was his adamant nature of being a perfectionist, which created this kind of an attitude in these designers and developers in Apple. But they are really also changing. So decision making is really tough. It's really depend on your emotional and intelligent maturity to counter to the situation. Of course, we never do micromanagement. So we have big clarity in our organization where we should involve and where we should not involve. So that's not an issue.
Okay, I think Naseem Nidambur also has a question. So can you please turn on your microphone, Naseem? Naseem, can you please turn on your microphone so that you can ask your question? I think the data connection is not that accurate. Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think Naseem is not available. Just out of curiosity, I would like to ask, what were the qualities that you did acquire from, I think, what was that inspiring characteristic of Steve Jobs that did motivate you a bit? I mean, what quality did you find?
Yeah, maybe that's a bit aesthetical. I'm a man of bit aesthetics. I want that, I want everything to be looking good. So whenever we make a product, I will be the last person to come in good about that, because most of our competitor products will be more bad than our. But I'm a person of more look and feel. So I was really curious to know how Steve Jobs would have made such kind of a clean product, because Apple is one product with its clean in its design. If you look into Microsoft, it's a messy design, but Apple is so clean. Whether their hardware, whether their softwares, whether their OS, all of this, looks so good. So that was one reason for me to study more about Steve Jobs. Maybe his journey was so small. He left all of us so early, but it was so, it was so evident that he had something to do with his character in the entire Apple. So he created a mark. So that was something that was very impressive for me. But as a motivation, I would never say Steve Jobs was never a motivation for me. I would never say no one should make Steve Jobs a motivational factor. But I would say Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam is the biggest inspiration that anyone could have in this entire world. From a newspaper boy, from becoming the president of India, after becoming the chairman of DRDO and heading in ISRO projects, launching the first satellites, along with Vikram Sarabhai, that's the biggest, case study what we have. There is one question I would like to answer. It's about how about farming and enterprise. So
Okay.
agriculture is one industry that is booming right now. Farm tech and agri-tech is the biggest industry that is growing in India, and India has a lot of possibilities and opportunities. There are a lot of agri-tech accelerator programs are coming up. There are a lot of agri-tech startups are getting heavily and highly funded. So that is something that youngsters should do. I mean, like college going students can really look into. That's going to be a massive business in next 2 or 3 years. Indian government has been normalizing many of their agricultural policies, which is promoting entrepreneurs to directly sell into the markets, devoid of their states. And it will become like, like the Swiggy, any such kind of a product, even in a local market, will have much importance. That's sure.
Okay, so I think, hello?
Yes.
Okay, I think Thomas Sibi has a question. Thomas, please turn on your
Sir,
microphone.
am I audible?
Hi, Thomas.
Yeah.
Okay, so for a person who's looking to hire a cybersecurity professional, which is more valuable? Like, which certificate is more valuable, the CEH or the OSCP?
From an international perspective, OSCP is from a security point of view, OSCP is comparatively better, because people really look for OSCP certificates when you're going to, foreign countries or foreign brands. They really look into these kind of certifications. And in cybersecurity is one industry where you can really prove without even certificates. You need to, if you're a good bug bounty hunter, you're a good cybersecurity professional. If you can do penetration without even certificates, you are still into that league. So most of the cybersecurity professionals in that league now never even had a certificate. They all took certificates much after that they have proven their track record.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, I think Mohammed Fuad has a question. What's the business idea behind Byju's success, month and all? So can you comment on that, sir?
That's a tricky question. I have seen Mohammed asking that 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
So I think they would be. They would have found out that they are a potential competitor. That would have been a reason. I don't believe that it's a competition killing, because the guys behind, Whitehead Junior made massive money. That they were acquired for around 300 million US dollars. So that's massive money in India. It's a massive, like somewhere around 3,700 crores or 4,000 crores. So that's how the business works. There is a possibility that if you have a good product, any one of these Byju's or Flipkart or Swiggy or Zomato can really come across, because next 2 years, we are looking for cybersecurity startups where we can plan acquisition. So because young minds have a lot of young energy, they would make good products out of it. So that's always there. From school students, we have seen many cybersecurity innovative ideas coming up. So it's really possible. That's how the market works, and that's how this industry has been doing a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Now, about the BHP products as well, what about the mutual benefits and all?
No, they have. I think they have. It's about Byju and Whitehead had mutual benefits that I think they benefit.
Yeah. Okay, sir. So, are there any more questions? Okay.
So thank you, sir, once again. Now, for the kind reminder of audience, please do fill out the feedback form before leaving the session. Next, I call upon our nodal officer, Rahul Manohar, sir, to speak a few words on this session.
Good evening, everyone, and nice to meet you, Mansakishore sir. My name is Rahul Manohar. I'm an assistant professor right over here in Rice College of Engineering, and nice to be here with you. It is our 4th episode on this program, Page with an Entrepreneur. We had 3 energetic entrepreneurs like yourself in the past 3 weeks with us here. And today's was, I believe, it was an active session, because there were an urge in your thoughts, and you were very much sincere to express it to all the students right over here. And I was extremely thankful for that, because you were communicating directly with all the students by just reading out their questions, giving out all the answers that you know. And that was something great gesture for me. And I would like to take one thing from yourself. You were talking about the badge of failures that you used to keep, and that point actually made me something, think about my failures that I had gone through. So thank you for giving me that wonderful advice too. And I believe that we can have much associations in the future. And thank you for coming over here in our program, Date with an Entrepreneur. And thank you for your inspiring words and sharing the experience with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, the entire team of Price College. It's great meeting you all. I wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now it's almost time to wind up this wonderful episode. I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone responsible for making this episode happen. First of all, Nandakishore Harikumar sir, for sparing his valuable time to be with us, and for your valuable words. It will really be an inspiration for us, and it will really help us. Also, I thank all the Kerala Startup Mission officials who have gathered here in this meeting. And I also thank our IEDC Nodal Officer, Rahul Manohar sir, for coordinating the whole event. Our IEDC CEO of Price College of Engineering, Mohammad Ashik, he has also really helped in bringing this event to success. Once again, I would like to thank the whole IEDC team, especially the tech team behind this event, and also the management of the Price College of Engineering.
So we will be back very soon with another exciting episode of Date with an Entrepreneur. Once again, I thank you, Harikumar sir, for being with us, for spending your valuable time, because in this busy schedule, you did find time for us, and we are really thankful for that opportunity. So we are winding it over here, and please refer to your emails or our IED's website for further updates, and stay tuned for another exciting episode. With this, we are signing off. I'm Anson Jose and Susan Maria. Thank you very much.